I'm constantly tired. I mean, I don't know. I've been tired. People are like, when was the last time you felt great? Felt great. And I'm like, I don't know. 98, I think was probably the last time. And I am here with one very fancy Dr. Daryl Appleton, which by alone, the name just exudes awesomeness. Is that your real name? Is it? I love it. It seems like, is this your stage name? Do you have a real name?
I wish. No, my mother purposely named me Daryl because she knew, she was a smart woman back in the 80s. She knew that people looked at resumes and that men got more looks for jobs and opportunities. So she named me Daryl on purpose, not by accident. She didn't like misspell something. So it's always funny to me when I walk into boardrooms and I work with high-powered execs and professional athletes. I get these looks when I walk in that I'm this like, well-dressed on purpose lady in her Jimmy Choos, kicking down a door named Daryl, and I'm right off the bat. They know that we're ready to hit the ground running. So I love that. No, it's not a stage name. And Appleton is my married name. And it is very wholesome. My husband's very wholesome. He's, exactly what you would imagine as an Appleton. He's always smiling with his little dimples. He's adorable. I'm a little bit more rough around the edges. So it's nice. It softens me out a bit.
Oh, and now you're just one of us. That's it. You're just another twin mom trying to make it to bedtime. Yeah. This is it. So the puppies are almost a year. You're getting there. We're almost, are we going to have one cake or two?
I haven't even thought about it. I know I don't even know.
Talk about.
It's crazy. I get most upset about the amount of clothes that I have for them that I can't put them in because they either grow out of it too quickly or they've beaten me into submission where I'm like, fine, pajamas, your pajamas it is. So I can't even think about a cake. I will get them as whatever they want. As long as, they don't try to death roll away from me when I'm changing them, whatever they want.
That's the alligator. When they alligate, it's like full on swamp people. That's the role they play now. That's it.
They're strong.
I know. It's good. That's good. That's what's supposed to happen, unfortunately. So they can't just, be little potatoes forever. They have to be little people. And they're so sweet. How has, looking back on your first year, what's been a highlight for you?
It's been really cool. So on a really kind of personal and slightly melancholy, and I don't mean it to be, my dad's a twin and he lost his twin brother a couple years ago. So it's been so special to see him with the twins. Yeah. And, he is an Italian from New Jersey, so he is not emotional whatsoever. But I remember he sent me this text and he was like, it fills a really like deep hole for me. I'm so happy to have them. And I think it's the only, emotionally sensitive text he's ever texted me on that level. So that has been something really amazing. But and I'm sure all of our twin parents out there can absolutely say the same, like just seeing them interact, like, no offense, but two babies are way cooler than just one. Like seeing them like walk and talk and run and do all these different things. One baby is also very cool. I don't mean to offend anybody, but it's been cool watching them.
Listening. They're not listening to us, so don't worry about it. We're in a safe space. It's a circle of trust here. We're okay. You can talk about people.
Thank God. But that's been really cool. Just how they fight and talk and they work out their arguments through like their grunts and their guttural noises. Yeah. But they're cool. They're cool chicks. They are not shrinking violets. I had one screaming at a cabinet for like 10 minutes straight the other day because it wouldn't open. Like she is relentless. And the other one, she's right alongside her trying to open it and being like, it won't open, and crawls away. So that's fun too, just watching their little world kind of expand and grow.
Oh, it gets so good. I'm so excited. I know that people typically, crap all over us, especially at this age when it starts to get a little physically harder, but it's really doesn't. I mean, it does and it doesn't at the same time. And honestly, there's nothing that you could really do about it, but just roll with it like you've done so far. That's what it is. Everybody's like, what do we do? And I'm like, you know what you do? You figure it out when it's in front of you. Like, I can't say, okay, here's 11 tips for when your baby is screaming at a cabinet. Like, that's not an article we're writing.
No, are you sure?
I can. But this is what is kind of prompting this discussion today, right? So I always talk to my fancy guests before I press record, and I will have to say the majority of times I never speak about what they want to talk about. And it's always what I think you guys, my 9 listeners now, I think we're up to, want to know. And for the 9 of you, I am very surprised to find out that today did you guys know that there's 6 different types of rest? Honestly, I have to tell you, I really didn't. But now that I kind of know what it is, and you guys will know soon too, it makes total sense. And that is what I want to kind of talk about today. And I want to break it down. And I'm curious to know how many of you are resting in these different categories on a regular basis. I will tell you, if I look at so far today, I have done none of those. So I have not rested in none of those types. Okay. Are you ready? First of all, how did this even come up? Like, what the heck is 6 different types of rest? And is that really a thing? Obviously, we know it is, but it makes sense. But who was the one that said, okay, I'm sleeping all day and I don't feel restful? How did it come to be that it got broken up like this?
It's interesting because there's no one person who claims this. I think there's different people who have contributed to it, and they have switched around what they have thought is important for rest. Some people say it's 4 different things. Some people say it's 6. Bill Hetler, who did the kind of wellness wheel and these different dimensions of wellness, kind of fathered this or grandfathered this. I don't really know how old he is. But it made us look at the fact that we cannot pinpoint wellness as one thing. There's all these different dimensions, and they really interconnect and intersect in a way that you can't extract one. And then it led to rest. If we can do this with wellness, well, what about resting? We started to look at rest in this idea that if you don't rest in the appropriate ways that you need, you are not going to feel rested. And it's such simple logic, but 9 times out of 10, we sit there with our popcorn and our Netflix because our kids are finally in bed. And we watch 3-4 hours of TV and wake up the next day and wonder why we don't feel any better. I would argue, if you're sitting in front of me, you didn't need that type of rest. You needed a different type. And there is active rest. There are ways to, rest while moving. There's ways to rest while like physically sitting and resting. But again, like I am very big on intentionality. So if you don't know why you are doing a thing, then you're doing it wrong. So taking a step back and understanding what you need and how to give yourself what you need is probably one of the most empowering things that I could ever give to anybody.
I'd like to receive these gifts today. Thank you.
Open
I'd like to
arms.
receive all the information on my different types. Okay, let's break them down. Okay, so first one is we have physical rest. So is this as logical as we think it's going to be, or is this some secret? No, oh no, Nat, it's so not just sitting down and resting. What is it from your point?
Physical rest is pretty much straightforward, right? It is literally resting your bones, resting your body. If that means you are not a person that's ever going to sit on a couch because you'll die, maybe that means instead of taking a 10-mile jog, you're walking your dog around the block and you're resting that way physically.
Okay.
For a lot of us twin survivors, it is physically rest. Like we need to lean into literally sitting down because we are tired, because our backs hurt, because like we're tense all over. So physical rest could also be a massage. It could also be, taking the train home rather than transferring 3-4 different buses, or having, your significant other come pick you up and literally resting in the car on your way home. So physical rest, definitely leaning into that. And it doesn't just mean sitting down. So anyways, as you're taking time, taking care, and just not moving or not exerting as much energy as you normally would, that is physical rest.
All right. So I don't literally need to just rest. I could just cut back on whatever physicalness I'm doing. Okay. So
Yes.
that's kind of easy. What about emotional rest?
Emotional rest. This, I think, is a lot of times people come to me, in the world of psychology, everybody's looking for some sort of emotional rest. When we do a lot of emotional labor, especially as parents, especially as mothers, a lot of tabs are open in our head. That kind of whole quote where like, and the music's playing from some tab and you don't know how to shut it down. Emotional rest means not adding any more to your plate. So if your mother-in-law calls or your friend calls who always has a problem and you're just at your wit's end and you have no bandwidth, you have no emotional bandwidth to give, Sometimes it's about setting that boundary and saying like, hey, listen, Sharon, can I call you later? I got to call you tomorrow. Like we'll pick up. I want to hear all about why the bread was stale. I can't right now. I know you love your coupons. We just got to back it up a bit. And if there's something to be said about putting yourself first and being selfish, which is not a bad word. It is not a dirty word, literally putting yourself first in that moment because you need to rest, because you cannot take on any more emotional labor. To be fair, self-centered means you think everyone else should put you first. We want to stay away from that. But
Okay.
selfish is not a bad thing. Putting yourself first and knowing what you need. And sometimes that means saying no. So emotionally resting looks like turning down phone calls, radical acceptance. It is what it is. Not my monkey, not my circus, triaging events as they come in. Like, how much do I want to worry about this right now? Emotional rest is also when you come speak to somebody like me, a coach or a therapist, where you are literally having a space and a place that is about you for that hour. I don't know any other time or place where that can happen in our lives other than things like therapy or really intentional places that we make solely about ourselves. So that's emotional rest.
All right. I like where we're going with this. I didn't even realize that was a thing. All right. Now, what is spiritual rest?
Spiritual rest looks different to different people. And it doesn't necessarily mean religion. It can if you're religious and leaning into your religion and the practicings and the teachings that it has that really resonates with you. But for my agnostic or non-spiritual people, or maybe they're spiritual in a non-religious sense, I tell them to kind of look at God, G-O-D, which is good, orderly direction. Is what you're doing right now something you would consider good? Does it have an order? Is there a method to the madness? And is there direction to it? Where are you trying to end up? Maybe not specifically, but I need to know on the map. Are you trying to go northeast, southwest? Like, what direction are you going in? And leaning into that type of rest, leaning into understanding we are just a speck of cells on a huge spinning ball in the middle of wherever. Sometimes there's rest in that email that you need to send, or the snow you need to get out of your driveway, or the twins need 5,000 things for their macaroni necklaces. Like, we're just a bunch of cells on a spinning ball. And sometimes there's rest in that and leaning into that spiritual rest. So I suppose it's more macro rest. Okay. And the idea and a state of mind of shifting one state of mind to another of how much does this all really matter? And sometimes, yes, absolutely. There are glass balls that if you drop them, they will break. But sometimes there are rubber balls that if you drop them, they'll bounce back and you can pick up later on. So leaning into spiritual rest at that point where you can literally pick something up a little bit later and kind of say like, you know what, right now I'm just going to be a clump of cells, and that's okay.
All right. Never even thought about that too. All right. Now, what is creative rest?
So if you have young children, or if your job is very creative, podcasting, 9 times out of 10, we feel burnt out because it's just more content to create. How am I going to keep the twins entertained today? What type of finger paints can we do? How do I read this book in a different voice? For your twins at 17, I don't even know how you entertain them. I suppose you don't have to. How can I creatively not try to bury them in the backyard today? But there's something about always being creative, always having to have a fun solution, always having to think outside the box. You don't need to. No one is expecting you to do that all the time. The marketing execs that I work with, people who are highly creative, I have a lot of people in the entertainment industry. We talk about not being creative on purpose. We talk about taking a step back and literally just being bland, be basic, don't do anything crazy, have a set meal, like don't order anything crazy off the menu, lean into your comfort foods, lean into the pajamas that you wore yesterday so you don't need to think about that great creative outfit you're going to wear. Things like that are really great to take us away from this pressure sometimes that builds, even though we like it, even though it's something that might fuel us, but intentionally taking some time back so we can be more creative in the future moving forward and we don't exhaust that avenue.
Interesting. I'm getting into this. Okay. Now we have sensory rest.
Which I would argue, having 11-month-old almost twins, I need sensory rest more than anything. My job is talking. I talk all day, every day. They talk at me now all day, every day. Not really talking, they're just screaming at me and babble words.
Mhm.
My husband loves to call me on his way home and talk to me before he actually gets home and talks to me. There's music going, some toy in the background is freaking out. Like it's just too much. So when I rest now, there is nothing on. There is not a musical note being played. There is nothing, no one is talking to me. I'm usually in my shower with the door locked that nobody can come in. And I tell my husband on purpose, like, I need 15 minutes. I love you. Let's talk when you get home. I just put the kids to bed. Like, I can't hear you because I'm not listening. So sensory rest is literally taking yourself away from the noise. A lot of the surgeons I work with, I have a contract where I'm in-house at Brown University with their general surgery residents and attendings working on their wellness. And in our coaching sessions and the lectures that I give, I specifically tell them the OR is noisy. Like there's a lot of research that even this background noise that's happening at your offices, at your home, wherever you are, it does creep into our subconscious and it just feels like things we have to constantly filter out. So on your commute home, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before, I love a commute, plane, train, automobile, whatever it is. That is a great time to lean into sensory rest because it is very hard to shut your kids up. It is very hard to shut your significant other up, especially if they need something in that moment that's like actually valid. At work, it's very hard to tell everybody to be quiet. So in your commute, use that as your capsule to not listen to anything or listen to something specific that you want to listen to, where you can just be a person traveling by way of whatever transportation into the night, and you don't need to do anything but just be. But there's something about that type of agency. There's something about that type of intentionality of what exactly you are listening to and filtering out that is restful in itself. So I think sensory rest is one of the most underutilized types of rest because we don't do it intentionally or we don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Interesting. So wait, so sensory rest is, it doesn't literally have to be like sensory deprivation. It just has to be a rest from the I don't want to say unnecessary, but the pieces of sensory that weren't caused by you.
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting this now.
Yes. Very well done. Good summary.
I'm like, how do you, like, if I'm choosing a podcast, isn't technically that sensory that I'm listening to, and then I still have to have my eyes on the road from driving, but then I would see how if I was causing those sensory environments that I would be better. Okay. And then my last, which holy smoke, how is this possible to get mental rest?
The most annoying question that happens is what's for dinner or what do you want for dinner? And the reason why people get so angry when that question is asked is because it's just one more thing for me to think about. And when we talk about mental rest, if you are in a role where you are constantly making decisions, when you are constantly trying to figure out what goes where and how, whether that's in your job, if you're a problem solver, whether you're a parent, we're definitely a problem solver. If you're a single parent, I don't even know how you do it because you're constantly problem solving. There's something about not having to think about something or having somebody else choose for you that feels really restful. So this is a really great way to lean into your supports and say, Tuesday nights, I cannot do dinner. I don't care what we have, as long as it's edible. I don't even care if it's nutritious. We can have dirt. I don't know. But like, I just need somebody else to do it for me. That's a way to lean into mental rest. It's passing the baton for that moment and saying, I cannot. Couples that I've worked with, and this sounds so like Etsy and so like Pinteresty, but it works. Get a bunch of different color pieces of paper. Put on green pieces of paper, things that cost more than $20, put on blue pieces of paper, things that you can order that will be there in 5 minutes, and put on orange pieces of paper, stuff your significant other or support system knows how to make, and put it all in a jar, different types of meals or different, order out options, and pick from the jar. And you have your colors. So you can say like, listen, we're willing to spend a little bit of money, or like, nope, I'm going to cook tonight, but like, my partner, this is what they know how to cook. So he's going to do it, or she's going to do it, or they're going to do it. And it takes away the thought process of what is it? Okay. Do we have to call here? But what do we have in the fridge? What do we have this? And you go to your jar and you pick out an option. And that's one less thing you have to think about. So if we can start to even automate some things in our life, it's kind of like automatic bill pay. It's one less thing to think about. It's one less thing to process. So the mental rest, I know as a new parent, is overwhelming because you are constantly thinking about 4, 5, 10 different things at once. And a lot of times postpartum creeps up, not just because of our hormones, but also because of these extra steps that need to be taken. So for our new moms out there, please also lean into your mental rest if you can, because that's a big thing. And for our moms of 17 years plus, it's still a thing. We still need to self-care in these ways intentionally.
Okay. All right. Now I know what they are. How the heck do we know what we need?
This is the self-awareness piece.
Oh, I hate this part. What if, right? Because like you're saying that I think I need to sit down and watch TV for 3 hours. I think I need to do XYZ. How do we know, or how do we keep track of the rests that we've had? She says with a question mark.
I don't know if it's about meeting all of them. I think it's about kind of what we were saying before. If you're telling me every time I go outside, it's spring, I get itchy eyes, my throat itches, I'm coughing, I'm sneezing. And you're like, and I'm like, okay, what are you taking for it? And you're like, a Xanax. I'm like, okay, right. You are not taking the right medication. You probably need a Claritin. Let's switch it up. This is the same thing. If you look at your symptoms, if you are asking yourself in a self-reflective place, maybe you have time to journal because you're a super person, but maybe it's just even a mental inventory of like, okay, what's going on right now? I'm tired. I need a break. You know, my husband or my significant other, they're nagging me. I just want to like sit in my room and read. I'm gonna be like, cool. Like you probably need some sensory, emotional, and mental rest. You can do all that. Go lock yourself in your room and read, and tell your partner or tell your support system, like, you need to watch the kids for 15 minutes. Or you do my air quotes are out, terrible parent thing, and you put on the TV. That is not a terrible thing. That is also rest for you and rest for them. Like TV is a way to zone out. Like they don't need to be creative all the time either. So I think there's a way to ask yourself intentionally, what is happening and what do I need? And I bet you are going to come up with the answer because you are now intentionally asking yourself that rather than just feeling all the feelings about it.
I am so fascinated by this. And I'm thinking about somebody who's listening to this that might be expecting right now. And if you could, for them, holy smoke, this is just great to know that there's different types of rest, because like you said, especially as a new parent with so many things going on, you may think you have enough rest because somebody watched the babies last night and you slept all night. Or let's say you even hired help to help with that overnight. And now you're like, but I still feel exhausted. It's so interesting because I think this is something that a lot of us experience, and we never really broke it down with the different outlets of rest that exist. Now, is there like a set amount of how much we need of these items, or is everybody's really so different?
I haven't seen anything in the research that suggests one set amount versus another. So I would have to imagine it's more on an individual level. Some people rest while being creative because their job is data entry. So there's also like this other flip side where leaning into the things you don't get a lot is also restful. So I think there's ways to look at it and allow it to fit the narrative that you want. The worst thing we can do is think that there's nothing that I can do. That's not true. We have a sense of agency. We have a sense of control. And as parents, expecting parents, new parents, seasoned parents, I think the main thread that I would pull on if any one of us were sitting in front of me saying, like, I feel these ways, would be this feeling of loss of control. By understanding what you need and giving yourself in response something that ails what you need is the best way to empower a sense of agency, a sense of control once again. And it makes all the rest a little bit more manageable, because we know you do not have control over your twins. You don't have control over your job or your partner or the weather or even your finances and things that happen and all these things. But what we can do is we can have sense of control over how we treat ourselves.
This is so true. I hate this conversation.
It's annoying.
It is. It really is, because this, I want to go back to what you said before about how selfish isn't a bad word, right? Because now, like, we're sitting here and we're like, okay, there's, you weren't even resting right. Look at us. You've been resting wrong this whole time. I've been resting wrong for 211 years. That's how old I know. That's why I look good. But it's really funny that, we use this word selfish, and there is this whole, I have children, I need to be a parent. I need to be an employee. I need to be a partner. How do we fit into this? And how do we determine how selfish to be without it hurting other people?
That's a great question. I think of the analogy of our phones, right? Our phones do all of these amazing things. It's literally this like extension of us in a lot of ways. If your phone dies, it is a piece of junk. It does nothing. What you need to do is eventually you need to plug it into the wall. And if you want to use your phone, you have to go over to it. So I think we are the cell phones in this analogy. We do all these great things. We can do anything for anyone. We have all these different kind of octopus arms, and we make things happen. When our battery gets low, we need to plug ourselves in at risk of burning out, at risk of emotionally dying, or who knows, physically. I mean, really, at some point, some days you feel like that. But it's not about not helping people. It's about saying to somebody, I can help you, but you need to come to me. I can help you in these ways. I can help you with these boundaries. Just like the analogy I was saying, or the example I was saying with your mother-in-law. I can absolutely talk to you about how awful the bread stocking was at Stop and Shop today, but I can do it tomorrow. So there's a way to be selfish and to put yourself first when you know you need it most, by setting really great boundaries, by sticking to these really great boundaries, and by unplugging yourself and going forward and doing all the great things that you can do once you're recharged.
That is an interesting way to look at it. Then maybe I want to talk about the guilt that comes along with that, though.
That is.
So what do we do, like as a mom, right? Or dad or grandma, grandpa, who's ever listening, we're trying it. And so we know that we have to go plug in. But if we go do that, we know that something else is going to fall off this house of cards. How do we overcome the whole guilt situation so we can get enough rest?
It's kind of, guilt is a story that we tell ourselves, and it has a very important psychological, hold on us in great ways, because we need to feel a part of something. Guilt is there to allow us to be accountable. And from an evolutionary perspective, it's what kept tribes together. So guilt is a very important thing, but how it fits into your story matters. I would much rather you feel guilty about not plugging yourself in and not being able to give your kid, your family, your work 100% or 90% versus I'm giving everybody around me 30% because that's all I have to give. Because you're going to feel guilty anyway, because you can give more, but you don't feel like you can plug yourself in and just put everything on pause for a little bit, or only give 50% for a little bit until you're fully charged. And then you're like ready to go. You can dig into tea time better. Your voices during those stories are better. Your boss is like, wow, like they're on top of things today. Like, what happened with you? And you're like, just a couple minutes of silence and I'm ready to go. So I would argue you can feel guilty either way. I would rather you very much lean into the space where if you don't do it, people are never going to get the best of you, and how much of that is potentially impacting, how you feel too.
So let's say we have moms that have school age kids. All right. They're 6 now. We're in school. They're living their little best lives, but they have gotten used to being there at their beck and call every 2 seconds, and your partner has, and your in-law has, for the Stop and Shop bread talk. How do you start to kind of distance yourself and set those boundaries with people not thinking that you're being self-centered?
You're going to get some pushback, and the people who have the biggest pushback on people who have boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any boundaries to begin with. So I would argue there's a little bit of toxicity there. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Everybody has it, but there's something to be said about if somebody is really going to chastise you or to make you feel bad about you taking time for you in a way that is appropriate to the situation, there is something wrong with that response. So I'm not saying like you're in the middle of your kids play and you get up and leave and you never return. And then you call 3 months later and you're like, I took a selfish. I'm so sorry, kids.
Yeah.
No, please don't do that. But there's something very different about, I can't cook dinner today. You know what? I'm going to stay home. Can you take the kids to soccer practice? I've seen a billion of them. I'm sure this one will be okay if I don't go. I'm going to use this time to stay at home and not even rest. Just do something else that makes me feel more rested because I don't have to look at that stack of papers. So I can put away the dishes from the night before. So you triage.
Okay.
If you were in a medical capacity, your doctor would triage. That splinter is going to have to wait. That gunshot wound we're going to attend to. This is how I think about guilt. We have to stop the bleeding in order to get to the smaller things later on.
Fascinating. Where have you been my whole life?
I'm hiding. I've been having twins.
You've been
Covered in puke.
this is such a really great conversation. And if somebody could listen to this in the very beginning, you don't set yourself up for problems later on, because you will see that it will happen, unfortunately, if you do not even set boundaries. But people, honestly, people don't think about setting boundaries with their kids. It's not something that really is intuitive, that you're like, oh, you're just another two people. How do we deal with that? Because you would say, well, none of these rules apply because they're my children and I'm going to give them everything and I want them to have the best of lives. How do we set boundaries with our own children so that we could get the rest that we need?
There's a saying that it's cruel to be kind. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. Sometimes we don't teach our children the skills that they need to be able to succeed in life by being too kind. And again, that doesn't mean beat your children. That doesn't mean do terrible things to them. That means that if they don't see mom taking care of herself, how are they ever going to model that behavior? Or how are they going to expect their partner eventually to take care of themselves without them feeling rejected or abandoned or left out? There's something about a healthy distance that needs to happen in order for people to share in a healthy love. And that distance is basically the distance I can love me and you at the same time. And again, selfish is not a bad word. It just means putting yourself first some of the time. So if your child really needs you, if your child is in actual tears because they got broken up with, or because somebody bullied them at school, or, they're in pain and they're hurting, that's not the time to take a selfish necessarily. Mm-hmm. But if your kid's like, mom, the TV, I want a snack, I want a drink, it's absolutely okay to say, I hear you. I love you. I have full faith that you know where the cabinet is and where the water is kept, that you can do it. And I will watch you from here because I believe in you. And sometimes that's parenting. It's teaching them to do for themselves so that they don't need you. And I would argue my philosophy, again, 1 year in, to do what you want with this, my philosophy for my children is to teach them how to be without me.
That's really our job. That's our whole job as parents. And it's tough to think about, because you're like, oh, I want to be with them forever. You don't. No, that's the whole thing, is we just got to raise good people to be good people to their people and their people to their people. And we're raising generations of awesomeness, but they do have to be dependent upon themselves. It's the one guarantee we get, right? I could always depend on me. I'm good. I'm always good for it. This is a hard conversation, because if somebody's listening and they constantly feel exhausted, and now they're like, okay, ladies, how the heck am I going to do this? I, forget about the sensory rest. It's like critical. Like it's not something that we think about. We're really thinking of, I think most of us think about physical rest. So are you sleeping enough? And clearly that's not the answer to being rested. Oh, I hate that. I want to just be rested. I want to be like a robot. I just want to be plugged in and be like, bloop, 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 6 hours, bloop, 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 back to normal.
Right. I think Instagram and social media has done a terrible job of perpetuating this bubble baths and wheatgrass shots and yoga mats and binge watching Netflix. That's not wellness. To me, wellness is truly creating a life that you don't want to escape from. Like, if anybody asks me my definition of wellness, it's that. In order to create a life you don't want to escape from, you have to take care of the moments so that those years take care of themselves. And there's something so empowering about being able to take care of you first so you can take care of everybody else, and allowing your children to see the process of somebody handling themselves first in order to disperse all of their goodness around. But again, knowing that if they don't take care of them, nobody else gets the gifts that come from that person being charged. And that's hard lesson. And it's not easy to do. I'm not saying any of this is easy to do. What I am saying is that it's worth it. It's worth doing.
I am a failure, everybody.
You
Just know that if you feel like you literally have just wasted your entire life because you haven't been resting right, I'm with you. Now, I really don't feel that way. I do feel like there's a lot of improvement that I could make. There's probably a lot of things that we could all make. And every single day, it's going to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't even know if we're really doing it wrong. We just know that we just don't feel right. And so if you just don't feel right and there's nothing physically wrong with you, thank God, right? As I'm knocking on wood, then you say, I think it's time to kind of do the inventory, like you said, and say, okay, am I checking off these boxes? And then you go from there and you're like, all right, here's my strategy moving forward. But it's so funny because people so want Twiniversity to say, tell me what to do. But we can't, guys. It's really hard because it is not a one size fits all situation ever. And it never will be. I mean, maybe we could give you strategies on questions to ask your doc before a C-section. Like, yeah, that's a no brainer. I got those on lock, man. What do you need? Strategies to help breastfeed? Psh, I got that too, man. Like things like that I could help with. But if it's to make you feel better, nobody knows how to make you feel better. And you may not even know how to make yourself feel better, but hopefully knowing that there are different types of inputs or outputs that we're getting and boundaries and guilt. Oh my, it is the true Wizard of Oz swirl of insanity that we have. But just thinking about the 6 different types of rest, like, are you getting them? Is that why you don't feel rested? If that's not it, maybe you're like anemic. Who the heck knows? But it's worth starting off here because this doesn't cost anything. You don't have to travel for it. There's no co-pays. You could just get a piece of paper. I'm going to totally do the things about dinners. I love that idea. I really do. I almost wish there was like an app that was a wheel that I could just spin it and then just make it tell me.
Now you're talking.
I
would invest in that.
I want to. Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to do that. I'll find us a developer later on today.
Done.
I'm sure it actually already exists. That's the funny part about this because it's such a good idea. But it's very important that whether you're pregnant or whether your kids are here or whether your kids are already in college and you're living La Vida Loca, that to really think about, am I making the life that I don't want to escape from? That's so good. It should be in a fortune cookie.
I know. I'm a walking fortune cookie.
That's your secondary title.
I know.
Dr. Daryl Appleton, walking fortune cookie.
Just dispensing advice down the street wherever I go, unsolicited usually.
Daryl, what are our lucky numbers?
Well, that
on our little fortune cookie, we always get lucky numbers. I'm so appreciative that you just came to slum it with me today, and I'm so excited that you have twinnies because that's how we find each other here, man. Have you noticed that as a twin parent that you're finding more twin parents randomly?
It's amazing. It's almost like when you have a car and then you find all these other people driving that same car. I'm minimizing the specialness of this,
but no, it's true. It really is true.
It's so it's just amazing. And then obviously you get stopped down the street, so you can't like walk anywhere because somebody's like, "Oh, my plumber's brother has twins," and you're like, "That's so nice. That's so wonderful." But it is really kind of cool because they are special. It is a special thing. It's unique, and it's wonderful to have community like this and to support each other in so many ways. So I'm so happy to be here and so appreciative that you have me. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to talk to another human being. You didn't scream at me once or throw up on me. So this is a win. I will come back anytime. You can.
The day is still young.
Fair.
So let's see what happens about the puking. But now I'm going to put a bazillion links of yours below so they could find you. But what is your ideal way that people could reach out to you? Is it through social? Is it through, the contact you section of your site? If people have more questions or need more assistance, what's the best way to find you?
You can absolutely go to my website. Contact at drdarylappleton.com is my email. You can also DM me if you're a geriatric millennial like myself, or that's just easier. Whatever feels most restful, whatever feels like less steps and more mental energy that you need to expend, whatever's easiest. So truly, however you want to get in touch with me, smoke signal, carrier pigeon, I will find it. And I will, if I can't answer it, I will hopefully point you in a direction of somebody that can, because I truly do believe that when you know better, you can do better.
You are my spirit animal, is what it is. I reference smoke signals and carrier pigeons more, and nobody knows that. It's probably this area thing with you growing up here. It's got to be, because who the heck says send me a carrier pigeon? Here in Lower Manhattan, we literally had pigeon coops on the roofs here, so that's how you messaged each other, and that was normal. But yeah, I don't even know if people would understand that. So after this, Google carrier pigeons, see what they did. Know that me and Fancy Dr. Appleton both will be using that to communicate with each other, because that's our style. That's that. Oh, I had so much fun today. Thank you so much. And seriously, I can't wait till we find out if there's one cake or two. I feel like that's got to be its own,
I will live stream the birthday party and all of its chaos.
Would you really? I would go crazy.
If I remember to, I will absolutely put stuff up on social. I will totally do that, but I have no idea what they're wearing, how many cakes. I just want to make it through today, and then we'll talk about March when their birthday comes.
Amen. All right, kids, you have to go back to your realities too. So if you need anything from us, know that it's not just now, and it's not just. Do I call you Dr. Daryl? I've never even
call me Daryl.
Well, but I feel like if I call you doctor, it makes me feel like you're much more important.
All right,
and if
then
you
doctor.
had an Australian accent, you would now be full ranking with my kids for the most intelligent people. So I don't know how that became.
My Jersey accent isn't cutting it these days.
My kids, if you have an Australian accent, you must have a doctorate. I don't. That's their 20 thinking. So if you need anything from us, you could email Dr. Daryl. I don't care what she says. You could email her where she wants to be messaged. But for us, we're just a community at twiniversity.com. We're so boring. And any direct social platform, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. We're always here. That's the good news, is that we are the constant. We are the lighthouse of the storm of your twin insanity. We will do it. We will keep doing it. I get up every day. Maybe I will figure out how to set boundaries from you guys at some point. Odds are no, but I'm sure that Dr. Joe will then say, what type of rest is this? Is this creative? How am I sleeping? And I'll figure it out. And I'll be like, fine. I won't answer the 2 calls, or I won't call that family back that's in the delivery room right now. You're right, Dr. Daryl. I'll let them wait for me. That's what I'll do. But if you need anything, for all kidding aside, you guys know that we're really here for you no matter what. I hope you don't feel guilty from this. This wasn't a guilt podcast. This was an eye-opening. What more can I do to help myself? Because by helping you, you're going to help them. And that's how this whole thing goes. So until later, you know where to find me, and like and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. I hate all that crap, but it's really the truth. So do it. Make me feel good. And just please, once again, I would love a review just to knock that 1-star review about that woman who says literally nothing, but all I do on my podcast is yell at my dog. Don't know what she was listening to, but if you didn't hear me yell at my dog once in this podcast, maybe give me 2 stars. All right, kids, until later, have the best day ever.